Patrick Hicks Music Stories presents Every Grammys Ever, the 48th Annual Grammy Awards, February 8th, 2006. So a lot of times there's one artist who gets the most nominations, even if they don't end up with the most wins. But tonight there are 3 artists that are tied for the most nominations with 8 each. Mariah Carey, Kanye West, and Kanye West's protege, John Legend. And none of those 3 end up with the most wins. Tonight's another night where I'm not going to be too happy. Now, Best New Artist is good. John Legend wins, beating out Sierra, Keen, Sugarland, and Fall Out Boy. And then it starts getting weird. In Song of the Year, John Legend's Ordinary People loses. So does Mariah Carey's We Belong Together. Then Bless the Broken Road by Rascal Flatts and Devils and Dust by Bruce Springsteen. And they lose to U2's Sometimes You Can't Make It On Your Own. I told you, U2 were at their peak in the 80s, really good in the 90s, and in the 2000s they become the Grammys' favorite band. It's so weird. But they don't win in Record of the Year, where they're not nominated. The nominations in Record of the Year are almost totally different from Song of the Year, which is pretty unusual. The only crossover is Mariah's We Belong Together. You also have Gwen Stefani's Hollaback Girl, Gorillaz get their first Big Four nomination for Feel Good Inc., and Kanye West for Gold Digger. I've never seen this confirmed, but I think Kanye took the loss to Ray Charles at last year's Grammys personally. It became the biggest hit of his career to date, but it doesn't win Record of the Year. That goes to Green Day for the song Boulevard of Broken Dreams.
I walk this empty street on the boulevard of broken dreams, when the city sleeps and I'm the only one and I walk alone.
Speaking of stuff from last year, remember how I ranted about Arcade Fire's Funeral not getting nominated? It does get a nomination this year, even though it was released in September of 2004, firmly and clearly in the eligibility year for last year, but maybe the Grammys were embarrassed that they didn't nominate it, so they snuck it in this year? Good, they should be embarrassed. But it loses to the White Stripes album Get Behind Me Satan, which is also a great record. Now Kanye does win in Best Rap Solo Performance for Gold Digger. He wins Best Rap Song for the song Diamonds from Sierra Leone, and he wins Best Rap Album for Late Registration. John Legend also gets another couple wins, Best R&B Album for Get Lifted, and Best Male R&B Vocal Performance for Ordinary People. And the other big nominee, Mariah Carey, she gets 3 wins. Best Female R&B Vocal Performance for We Belong Together, Best R&B Song, and Best Contemporary R&B Album for The Emancipation of Mimi. So if those 3 artists with their 8 nominations each are not the big winners of the night, who's it going to be? Let's look to the nominations for Album of the Year. Both Kanye and Mariah are nominated. Kanye for Late Registration, Mariah for The Emancipation of Mimi. Then you've got Gwen Stefani nominated as a solo artist for her album Love, Angel, Music, Baby. You've got U2 with another Album of the Year nomination for How to Dismantle an Atomic Bomb. And then, oh Grammys, Paul McCartney with Chaos and Creation in the Backyard. But before we get to the winner, let's talk about some albums from 2005 that were not nominated. Let me say right off the bat, I think that doing this part of the series is going to start to get harder. And that's because by the mid-2000s, music is just so splintered. I think the monoculture is dead at this point. But we're just not going to have the Neverminds and Dark Side of the Moons, the David Bowies and the Led Zeppelins. By 2005, it's just so much easier to make music, to get your music distributed, to put it on the internet, for people to find it. There's so much stuff out there that everything is just so segmented. You could have a record that to me was the most important record of the year that other people may have never even heard of. And that is something new for now and going forward. Some of the albums from 2005 I think are the closest to being egregious snubs are Sufjan Stevens' Illinois, Block Party's Silent Alarm, Animal Collective Feels, MIA's Arular, LCD Sound System's self-titled first album, and Wolf Parade's Apologies to the Queen Mary, which is my personal favorite album of 2005. And the Grammy goes to U2 How to Dismantle an Atomic Bomb. The Grammys love to put me in this terrible position of having to say bad things about bands that I love. I love U2. When they won, I probably would have said that they are overrated. Now I think the pendulum has swung too far the other way, and they almost might be underrated now. You can't talk about U2 without people making fun of them, despite making some of the greatest albums of the 80s and 90s. But this is not the best album of the year. U2 becomes the first and only band ever to get 2 Album of the Year wins, which if I didn't know the Grammys history and you told me that, I would say, First of all, what about the Beatles, the Stones, Led Zeppelin, etc.? But then I would say, oh, is it for War and Joshua Tree or Joshua Tree and Achtung Baby? If you told me it was for Joshua Tree and How to Dismantle an Atomic Bomb, I would be very confused. Which is how I often feel about the Grammys. It is a very confusing awards show. I'm almost 50 episodes in and I still haven't figured it out. I've got about 20 years left to do it.
Kanye, you're next. To be in the company of Paul McCartney, who discovered the country that we're all living in, is a true honor indeed. Mariah, you sing like an angel, really something else. And what about Gwen? This is the heart of Hollywood. She's like Carol Lombard. It's like she's this extraordinary girl.
Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you next time for the 49th Annual Grammys in 2007.
Gonna make that move for somebody who appreciates all I give.